Hello, I'm Susan Briscoe. You might have seen my shows quite a few times before on Sewing Quarter. And first of all, I must apologise today because I have got a really rough voice. I have had a horrible cold all week and yes, I've been trying to get it back especially for you. So I thought about calling today's show The Secrets of Sashko because I feel like I'm going to kind of be whispering it to you. Anyway, we're going to be looking at some Japanese Sashko, as you might have guessed, and I'm also hoping to squeeze in a little tiny bit of kogin right at the very end of the show. And fingers crossed, my voice is going to hold out for us. So, Sashko, I've got some really exciting things for you today, because not only are we going to be looking again at some of my Sashko work, but also looking at the work of the ladies who inspired me in Japan, User Sashko Guild. And very excitedly, I have also got their very first book in English just for you, which is quite a thing. Believe me, we're going to get that in a moment. So the piece we've got hanging behind me, you've just seen a few shots of a piece of mine that's known as the Denman Canon. And I think what we're showing you at the moment is actually out of my first Sashko book, and it's the sampler quilt that I made using lots and lots of different geometric Sashko panels. Now, in that first book, I show you how to mark all of these patterns, so you can draw them all from scratch. They all start out with grids, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that in a while. But also, they're the beginnings of some of the designs that ended up on my Sashko sampler panels as well, which you'll have seen many times on this show. You may even have some at home. So I'm going to show you versions that I have stitched myself. And like I said, please just bear with me and my terrible voice today. So, the geometric designs in Sashko, maybe if you have a little look at those first. I've got quite a lot of pieces that I've marked over the years. Like I said before, the pieces that appear in the first book that are made in that huge sampler, the one that's right behind me, they're all stitched on, I'll just find the right fabric. This fabric, which is made by Olympus Thread Manufacturing Company in Japan, and it's called Azumino. It's actually almost exactly the same as the stuff my dress is made out of, but that's pure coincidence, I think. It's a lovely fabric to stitch through, and it's a little bit more loosely woven than the fabric that we chose for my Sashko panels. So that's what I used for my original panels behind me. And the way I put the designs onto the fabrics was they all started out with a basic grid. In fact, I'll just grab a little piece that I've got here. When I say a basic grid, oh boy, I mean a very basic grid. The one that I've got right here in front of me, this is just a 1.5 inch grid on a 9.5 inch piece of fabric. And then working from that, you see, then you can start drawing in the details for your other designs as well, like this one here. Let's pop that down there. And that is on a much lighter color fabric. And I've drawn that using a clover white marking pen, which I'll be showing you a little bit later as well. It's probably my favorite ever marker, I think, for Sashko. So here are a few designs that I've got marked up that I'm going to be stitching soon. That's just a few little squares on that one, because a lot of the designs just start out simply with squares. Some of these designs that I'm showing now, by the way, are designs I haven't stitched before, so you won't have seen them before, but if you keep an eye on my website over the coming year or two, you'll start to see these designs appearing on there, and also some of them may well appear as printed panels for Olympus. I love this one, it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm trying to remember all the names of these, but seriously, there are dozens and dozens of names of different Sashko panels, and some of the ones I'm looking at here now, I'm thinking, I drew these up and now I cannot remember what they're called. But this one here looks almost a little bit like Christmas trees. That one I do know the name of, that is Matsukawa Bishi. So that's how they all start out, these patterns. They're basically drawn onto a grid. I'll just pop that over to one side for a moment. Some of them are drawn starting out with the grid and then using a circle template to draw some around the circle and to put the curves onto the design. So, you know, you've got this kind of pattern where you can see it had the grid and then it's got the circles drawn on it. And also I've got this one here. or that previous one, by the way, is called Fundo or balance weights. And this little design here, this one is Nowaki, which is grasses. And again, this is just drawn using a circle template. So once you've got your basic grid, you take your circle, you pop your circle on like that, you draw around it, you draw around it again, and you build your patterns up, which is all covered in my Sashko book. And like I said before, this is how a lot of the patterns started. They ended up on my panels as well. I'll pop these down here for now, because I'll just show you quickly how those very, very basic grids are put onto the fabric. Let's move those off there a little bit. I'm sorry, some of these are a little bit creased because they've been in the back of my van all the way down here. I came down from Scotland for this show yesterday. So I've got my piece of fabric and I've lined it up on a perfectly ordinary, very cheapy cutting mat. And then I'm going to use a ruler. And what I would do is link up the lines. And I'm using my ruler to link the lines on the mat, here and here. And then I'll draw a line there. I know I've drawn these before, it's just so I can show you lots of things in the hour. And then you move the ruler across, you draw your next line, move the ruler across, draw your next line, and keep working across like that. If you're left-handed, go the other way. The idea with doing this, you see the lines on the cutting mat make sure that your squares stay the right size. If you try to do this using a quilting ruler and you draw one line and then you move your ruler across, you try to line up, you draw another one, what always happens is you get over to the far side of your piece of fabric and you've run out of fabric because every time you drew a line, the square got bigger and you didn't know. But if you do this and you take the lines off your mat, it works perfectly. So once you've got your first set of lines on, you can turn your square around like that, line it up again, and then just draw your lines coming across once again like that. And that will then form the basis of most of your patterns that you're going to draw. All your geometric ones anyway, you'll find that they all start out like this with a very, very simple grid. It's absolutely great. And this piece of fabric, I think, was about, I think it's 9 3/4 inches square because I wanted a good border all the way around it. And it's a size that I work with quite a lot, 9.5 or 9 3/4. It just makes a really good size piece to go into the side of a cushion panel or on the side of a bag or as a quilt block or something like that. That's why I keep using that size. It just works out really, really well. So you can produce patterns in different ways. Like I said, some of them, you start with your grid and then you progress and you take your circle template. I'm really sorry because I realized I didn't pack one. I was going to go running around to the kitchen and see if I could find a mug or something that was the right size, which is another option you can do if you haven't got a circle. And, you can progress like that. Or you can take a pattern where you draw a large scale grid. In the case of this one, it's a 9.5 inch piece of fabric, and I drew a 4-inch grid, and then I've drawn extra lines inside. And this pattern here is called Masuzashi. It means stacking squares. We have actually got a little sample of it in the quilt behind me, which is, it's right up at the top. I don't know if you can see it up there. Can you see it? Oh, there it is. Yep, there it is, that one there. Oh, that's wonderful. That's really great. You managed to find it on there. And I'm just looking for my little clever bit of stick, which I put down somewhere on here. I've lost it. Oh dear. This always happens. You get so many things out. Oh, there it is. Because if you're going to draw a pattern like this, you've got 2 different ways of doing it. You could draw a grid all over, like I did on, like I did on this square here. And then you can just stitch, and use that as the foundation for your pattern. You're just going to stitch squares within squares. You're going to have to look at a picture of what you're stitching, mind you, to be able to do it. Or you can get something like either a lollipop stick, or in the case of this one, it's a coffee stirrer. You can use something like that, something that gives you a good straight parallel line. And in the case of this piece that I've got here, which is a slightly tighter version of the Masazashi pattern. See, on this one, I've just drawn my lines coming in, stepping in each time, using the width of literally of the coffee stirrer to do it. That was all I used for that. And it makes it a very, very simple pattern to draw. And then you've also got this pattern here, which is related to it. This is called Raimon. It's a square spiral. And again, you just start by drawing a square and then spiraling in. But again, you're using the width of a thin ruler or a piece of wood or a lollipop stick, something like that. And you're just lining it up, drawing a line, lining it up, drawing a line, going round and round and round and round. So they're really easy ways of getting patterns onto fabric. So another way that I like to sometimes mark my fabrics, I've got a piece here, is by making a template out of paper. And I've got a few in here that I made earlier on. And I've probably got a bit of scrap paper. Oh, and after all that, I found my circle template. That was what I was looking for before. I'll just show you how to do one of these. Actually, I'll just use a bit of scrap paper. You can easily make a paper fan. And that makes a lovely design in Sashko. And I've got a whole bundle of different fans tucked away in here. That's a much smaller paper fan there. Should I just hold it? Oh, no, I'm just going to lay it down on there. You can see the one that I've drawn on there is a lot bigger. Let's get a few bits of these out. Pop that over there. And I've got this fan here, which is it's called Matsukawa Bishi. I showed you that piece before that had that motif, almost looked like a little Christmas tree or something. And that was the Matsukawa Bishi. Well, this is the fan version of it. And I've got a fan here where I've just given it a little rounded top to the fan. But they all start out by folding a piece of paper, and I'll show you how that's done. You just get an ordinary piece of A4 paper. It's absolutely nothing fancy at all. And fold it. Imagine you are making a paper plane. So I'll fold it like that. But you're making a paper plane that's very lopsided. This paper plane, if you try to make it fly, it'll just go all over the place. So that's my first fold, and I folded it, actually not terribly well. I'll just fold that again a little bit better. I'm trying to make it go nicely into that corner down there. Yeah, where my finger is, yeah. And then I'm just going to take this little piece here, and I'm going to fold it back outwards. I think maybe I should put my specs on for this. I think see what I'm doing. There we go. Folding that outwards like that. And then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to fold it the other way, like that. This is what I mean now about it looks a bit like a paper plane. You see, if I open it out a bit like that, you'll see it's a little bit like a paper plane, but it's a very lopsided paper plane with a big side and a small side. And I can fold it outwards. I'm going from the last fold to the first edge again. Fold it there, like that. And then again, going from my last fold to the first edge again. Just make sure it's well tucked in. And now I've got this little wedge of paper. So what I'm going to do with it, I'm first of all going to trim. You see inside of it here, there's, I don't know if you can see that terribly well. Maybe if I put my scissors behind it, that's better. You see that? There's a place here where there isn't an awful lot of paper. So I want to make sure that when I cut my fan, I don't end up cutting a bit where there's no paper inside of it. So I'm going to trim it all off roughly to the same length as that. So that's how it looks now. They're all more or less the same size. And then if I get hold of it and I give it another little fold, trying to get it reasonably well lined up, you'd be a bit more precise than I'm being nothing with this. Yep. Got it like that. And then you're going to cut up towards the last fold. So I've cut it really almost like a church window kind of shape. And then when that's opened out, so that gives me a paper fan, which is more or less identical to the one that I've got stitched down here in Sashko, like that. And then all I've got to do is just pin that to my fabric, draw around the top, put a little X marks the spot down here at the bottom. Then get my ruler and draw all my fan lines in there, and that will give me a lovely fan in Sashko. And if I want to do something like the Matsukawa Bishi shape there, then I just need to cut it a little bit differently. Fold it up again, pinch it again, this last fold. And then if I just cut, that's a straight line. This time I'll move that away so you can see this a little bit better too. So I've cut it like a straight line. If I open that out now, I'll get a fan where the top edge is like a zigzag. And if I wanted to do a fan, I think I might even have one with me today. Oh yes, I have, I've got one here. If I want to do a fan that looks like a series of arrow feathers going in, this is only partly stitched, I'm finishing it off at the moment. You see where the turquoise is around the top and the red? I'm going to put a few more lines in like that, and then it will look like a whole series of samurai arrows all going into one point. If I want to do that one, I could just use the template that I've cut now. But if I want to turn this into the Matsukawa Bishi pine bark diamond, all I need to do is fold it back up again, like that. Put that pinch in again. I've cut it now, I've got that little wedge shape. And all I need to do now is make another notch in the side, like that. And then when I pull that out, I've got my pine bark diamond pattern. I don't know if you can see. Excuse me. So that's a very simple way of making a fan motif. Just move those bits off there. Can I just ask us just to cut for one moment? I am seriously going to have to cough. I'm sorry about that. Can we do that? So another kind of design that you might want to do as a small square is something like a Japanese camon crest. Now things get a little bit more complicated, because if you want to do a crest, you need the actual design and you need a way of transferring it onto your fabric. And the method that I normally use is to take a paper pattern and then to get a piece of this stuff, which is Sashko paper. This one has been used many, many, many times, by the way. And it comes in 5 different colors. So if I'm going to do a transfer of something like that, I need to have my motif. Here's one I prepared earlier, as they say. And my design. And I would actually put that down on top of my piece of fabric. And it was sort of pretending in a way that I'm doing all this from scratch. I would then pin that onto my piece of fabric, slide my piece of Sashko paper underneath. Imagine I've got it pinned. So I'm trying to rattle through these things today. And then I'll just get a pen and trace around all the different elements of the design. However, of course, if you want to do things a little bit more easily, you could just get some of my Sashko panels where I've put those designs on for you already. In fact, they're hand printed in Japan. So that's one way of putting a motif onto a piece of fabric. If you have a more elaborate design, it's quite useful, really. So before I sort of leap into talking a little bit about my panels, I thought one of the things that I might show you today, because this is something quite exciting, and it only just arrived literally on Wednesday, is the book produced in English by the ladies who taught me Sashko. And this, it really is rather special. You know, I used to live in Japan. I was an English teacher out there. I lived in a little town called Machi. Machi just means town. And when I went back for the Millennium New Year in 2000, that was when I really learned how to get to grips with the Sashko there. I didn't know anything about Sashko before I went to work in that town, not a thing. When I went back for that New Year holiday, everywhere I went, I saw these absolutely stunning samplers, really just simply amazing pieces. And the thing that captured me about these was the style of Sashko called hitomezashi. It means one-stitch Sashko, and it's these little tiny patterns here, these designs that are just made literally by straight lines of running stitch. You know, you look at a pattern, for example, like this one here, which is persimmon flower stitch, kaki no hanazashi. Funny thing is, it's easier to speak Japanese today than English. And you look at it and you think, oh, the way you stitch that pattern is by sort of going around, stepping around the pattern, but you don't. It's actually two sets of lines of stitches going back and forth. I've got a little sample, which I think is in this pile here. Or maybe it isn't, it's somewhere here today. But I have a little sample, it'll turn up later on, where I've just started stitching that, and you can see it is literally two sets of stitches running one way and then running the other way. That is where we got the name, the magic of Sashko from, which, as I said before, my friends have now used for their book. And this beautiful sampler that's on the table was stitched by Chie Ikeda, who was the lady who first taught me Sashko. Back in 2003, they came over to the very first Festival of Quilts at the NEC. So some of you might have met User Sashko Guild members there, or you might have met them when they came over in 2010 to the Great Northern Quilt Show at Harrogate, or in 2014 when they came to the Scottish, the Loch Lomond Quilt Show up in Scotland, and they've been to, well, let me think, they've been to Quilts UK, and they've been to quite a few shows. And when we had that very first exhibition back in 2003, we thought the magic of Sashko was a very good name for it, so that's what we called it. This is actually their fourth book. It's the first one they've done in English. And then the very, very lucky position that Reiko Domon, who's the leader of User Sashko Guild, her niece is actually completely bilingual in English and Japanese, and she has done the most marvelous translation. Needless to say, when this arrived, all I wanted to do was sit and read it. So I thought I would give you a little look at the book, because at the moment, well, as of today, as I'm recording this, you can't get this over here. But by the time this show goes out, you'll be able to get it from my website. And they are coming over to the Scottish Quilting Show at the SEC in Glasgow at the beginning of March, and also Dornoch Fibre Fest, which is at Inverness. There'll be details of all of these on my website, by the way. And they will have copies of the book for sale, and you can meet some of the ladies there and have a go at doing a class with them, which will be absolutely wonderful. So this is the cover of the book, and it's showing some of the stunning details of these hitomezashi patterns. And I'll just go a little bit into it. So we've got a nice little introduction all about the book, telling you a bit about it. I'm just wondering, a canvas full of possibilities. That is such a good way of describing it. And I absolutely love this picture. This is Mount Chokai. This is actually a view from the town where they live. It's the 5th highest mountain in Japan. And it's regarded in Japanese Shintoism as having a goddess that looks after the mountain. So they're wonderful because they've really shown the context of where their Sashko designs come from. And they start telling you the history and the history of the area and how the different patterns get their names. And then we have a selection of photos of some of their work, and also when they've been teaching over here, a little bit more history, a bit more new. I was fascinated to read this section because, well, it tells you all their adventures in collecting all the old patterns, and then how they set up User Sashko Guild with the idea that they would, preserve the patterns, hand them on, and share them to people all over the world. So there's a mixture of antique pieces and some really beautiful modern pieces. And here they actually show you, this is the size you would need to make the traditional farmer's waistcoat. It was used when they were pulling sledges to bring wood and other produce and things in during the winter. And then there's a little article that I wrote for them, which is really how I got into Sashko. And then this lovely piece here, Patchy Sashko. Now, This very special old jacket is one of two which are at the Ayama House Museum in Uzumaki. It's a 19th century mansion which has now been restored and it's open to the public. It's quite a stunning place, and they found these two really, really wonderful old jackets which inspired Reiko to make her own version, which is a waistcoat down here, and they're really very special. And then they give you some of their Sashko panels, and it shows you how to stitch the Hitomisashi designs. Now, many of these are very similar to Kogin, which of course is something else that I do, and I'm hoping we'll be able to have a very, very quick look at it at the end of the show. Unlike a lot of the other Sashko designs, these patterns just have lines that go side to side. They don't change direction, they don't go up and down, they don't go on a diagonal. And yet you can make all these wonderful stitches, these different patterns from them. And once again, they are just running stitches. Really hard to believe, but everything I've shown you so far, in fact, everything you're going to see from me today, it's only running stitch. That's what is absolutely fantastic about Sashko. It is not difficult to do, and really you need very, very little to get started with it. They give you the meanings of the patterns, and then they show you how some of the patterns are constructed, so you can have a go yourself. I love the way they've used touches of colour. That's something that we started doing with my first book. Because when I was first in user and I was having my first Sashko lessons, there were some patterns I just could not understand until I saw pieces that people had stitched with a little bit of colour, and then suddenly it made sense because I could see where the different lines went. So it's something that we've stayed with as a method, really. And they have these delightful patterns which are based on little butterflies or cho. They give you all the traditional names. And I love this little bit here as well. Say, sewing and ladies' etiquette in Japan. They found an antique sewing book, and it's telling you all the things that you're supposed to do before you start doing your sewing. It's really quite charming. And then we have some bigger patterns as well. These ones over here, starting on this side. Now, these designs here, these larger patterns, they're taken, some of them are variations on some of the designs that I've already done. They're taken from a book called Shingata Moncho, which was published by Hokusai, famous Japanese designer and artist, in about 1825. And he put some of the latest and most exciting new patterns, as well. It's called Shingata, it means new form, and Moncho, it just means pattern book. So this was like all the latest, hottest, newest designs in the 1820s in Japan. And what's so clever is turning them into Sashko designs too. So a little section of that. And then we've got a section here, which is, I'll just turn it there. New common pattern. This is the section we're coming into now. I sort of started talking about it before we got there, because I was so excited about it. This wonderful design. This is like a version of the hemp leaf pattern, which I'm going to look at in just a moment. But it's overlapped, and it shows you how to draw it. What's really important with this, by the way, like with quite a lot of Sashko designs, when you come to draw some of the more complicated patterns, you find that the negative space, in this case, the little hexagon between the patterns, is actually really important, so you get the patterns in the right place. So I'll flip through a little bit there. Oh, and they've also put this lovely little piece on here, patchwork and Sashko. And they've done some designs based on semamori, which are the charms that are stitched onto the back of children's and babies' kimono, which are just so cute. And I absolutely adore these. They do give you the full instructions on how to make them. So there we go. And they're a combination of applique or patchwork, but I think they're mostly done with applique, and a little bit of Sashko as well. So I think they're absolutely delightful. So I'm thrilled to bits that User Sashko Guild have finally, well, that's the back, by the way, which looks rather glam too. It's an assortment of different blocks from some sampler quilts they've made. I'm thrilled to bits that they've finally managed to do a book in English, because it's something that I've wanted them to do for a very, very, very long time. So I'll take this little piece away. Oh, and by the way, on this old piece here, this is stitched the traditional way. So it had almost no marking at all, just a few lines on it. And obviously the hexagon shapes were marked, but the rest of it was placed by eye, and that is the way that they traditionally did the designs. Fortunately, nowadays we can mark grids, so that makes it a little bit easier. But one of the designs that I spoke about just then, Asanoha, the hemp leaf pattern, is this one here. I'll show you that in just a moment. I'll put that one down there. Maybe we can look at the two together. Yeah, there you go. When you see it only stitched in white, it's really difficult to know where to go next with your stitching. When you see it in color, suddenly you can understand how the pattern works. At least that's how it was for me. So that's how I learned how to stitch these patterns. With these larger Sashko designs, there's nearly always a good way of stitching them so that you don't stitch yourself into a corner, and you don't accidentally run out of thread too often. You get it all stitched really nicely. So in the case of the hemp leaf design, if you start and you do your vertical lines first, that's a really, really good way to begin. So I did the vertical in red. And then I did my zigzag lines. I did the first set in yellow down there, and then the next in the light green color coming up here like that. Okay. And then I did my shallow zigzag lines, which are these ones here. So I've got the turquoisey one going all the way down there. I've got a rusty colored one there. And I went across and I filled the pattern in like that. And then at the very end, I did the horizontal lines going across here. And you can see there's places in the design where I skipped across, literally skipped across. On the back, you can see you're just leaving a little loop on the back where you're going from one area to another. So this design is actually one of the patterns that we put on the panels that I did. I'll just bend down and pick a couple up here. I know we've had these on the shows many times, so you may already have bought some of these. If you haven't, you can get them through my website as well, and we have about 9 different colors of them at the moment. Although I must tell you, the one I'm showing you now is one of the limited edition ones we did for the autumn, and these are not going to last forever. So here's the geometric panel that I made with this one. And you see down here, you can see, I'll just hold it up a little bit better for you. There you can see the Asanoha pattern, and it is all marked out for you already. But if you were going to mark it from scratch, you begin by drawing a series of squares, like I showed you earlier on. You divide the squares horizontally into rectangles, and then you use that as a grid to help you draw your lines. It's not actually 60-degree angles. I know it looks like it, but it isn't. It's actually much, much simpler than that. And what we've done on these panels, we've taken the stitch length, which is basically the same that appears on all my stitching, because with most of these Sashko designs, with this type where you've got the lines changing direction, the Moyuzashi patterns, you find you've got a longer stitch on the top than you have on the back. So the stitch length on the top is about 1/8 of an inch, or 3 millimeters. That's an important figure to remember. 3 millimeters if you're metrically minded, and if you like your imperial measurements, go for 1/8 of an inch and you'll be absolutely spot on. And the gap between wants to be half the length of the stitch. So if you're stitching on a panel like this, it's really easy because the stitches are literally printed for you. They wash away later on, and you just follow what's there. But if you're marking it yourself, it is far easier to mark with a solid line and to just basically eyeball your stitches. But the way that we pleat the fabric on the tip of the needle will help you to regulate your stitch length as well. So that was my geometric panel. And then we also did one of Camon Crest designs too. And we do actually have a big quilt over the other table. I brought so much stuff, it was difficult fitting it all in the studio, you know. And the large quilt on the other table shows you all of these different crest designs. And that was actually the starting point for this panel. We took a lot of the designs off the quilt that's on the table, and we printed them ready for you to use. What I'm experimenting with at the moment on this is using double thread and single thread on the same piece. You see, I'll hold it up and just, maybe if I put that one down there, we can see it on the overhead perhaps. The little piece that I've got here, which is the triple plum blossom. Can you see that, like, the stamens and the flower, they look much thinner than the outlines. And that's because for the outline, I've used a doubled thread, which is one thread through the either needle, knotted at the beginning, and you're just leaving all the thread in the fabric. You're not like, we normally would do, where you would pull, the one end of the thread through and then the other end stays in the fabric. You're not going to do that. And it gives you that lovely different effect where you have got, different thicknesses, but it's all done actually with the same thread. And this was done with the 100-meter medium Sashko thread. We've sold that a lot on the show. There are many, many, many more colours than we've ever sold here, by the way, as well. It's not just cream and red and white. There's actually about 20 or 30 different colours of that one. I'm going to show you some coloured threads in a little while too. So that's one lot of panels. I've got a few other little pieces. I was playing about with these a little while ago. That's back to the Noshi bundle design. I showed you this one here. Well, we scaled it down a little bit and did it on a slightly different angle for the panel so that it would fit nicely within the square. And that's done with a single thread for the little ribbony bits in it and a doubled thread for the actual cord. And we have this one here, which is the ivy leaf. And again, I've used doubled on the outside and I've used a single for the leaf vein. So you can play around with different thicknesses of threads. You can actually also get fine Sashko thread as well, as well as the medium. It's not all medium. But it just gives you a little idea there of the effects you can get. So as well as my panels, there are many other pre-printed panels you can buy too. And you may have seen these little things here, which are called Hanafukin. Hanafukin. Hana means flower, and fukin is a little cleaning cloth. So it's like a pretty version of, a dishcloth, I guess, really, or duster. I know, they're far too pretty to use like that. But that's basically what they are. And they make them in lots and lots of different patterns. I've just got a few here. Pop those down there. We have got, some geometric designs, which are like the designs I was showing you earlier on. This one here is a little linked cross design. And then over here, we've got one called Sayagata, which is a very traditional design. And then we've got two pictorial designs, one with little goldfish and one with some cherry blossoms on. So they come with all kinds of different things. So again, you can do geometric pattern if you like geometric things, or you can do something which is pictorial. And you can play around with different colors and different thread thicknesses. When you buy them, by the way, they come, and there's actually like a doubled fabric, like that. That's the size of the piece that you get in the pack. Because the idea is that you're going to sew the back to the front. And very often people would actually stitch through both layers. This is one pattern that I'm just stitching at the moment, by the way, which is why it looks a bit incomplete. But I must admit, just looking at it on the screen, it looks rather nice like that. I'm a bit tempted to sort of leave it as an unfinished one. So you get an extra piece of fabric with it. And as I said, the idea is that it would go onto the back. So that is like your backing fabric. This one is another I've been playing about with. I am terrible for having lots and lots of things on the go at the same time. And this time it's dragonflies. And I think this is absolutely adorable. Where I've tried using the different thicknesses in this one, I've used a double thread for the dragonflies' bodies, and I've used single for the dragonfly wings. I want it to look a little bit more delicate, for the wing areas. I thought it would look pretty like that. This is one I'm just about to start on, actually. This is the cherry blossom. And you'll see that, you'll notice this a lot, I'm sure, with all the things I've been showing you. Sorry, I put it the wrong way around there. I better put that needle safely away too, because the Sashko needles are very, very sharp. You may notice with these that almost everything I've shown you, the edge has either been zigzagged or overlocked. I think Natasha used the wonderful term faux locking, because I don't actually do these on an overlocker, I just do them on my normal sewing machine. But it has a little stitch that goes two to the front, two to the side, and back again. And it gives a really nice flat edge, because when you're handling stuff for Sashko, you handle it a lot, and you don't want it all fraying away on you. So I've stitched these just through the one layer. And this piece here, oops, little one there. This one is momiji, which is maple leaves in the autumn. And again, I played around. This time I've used a shaded Sashko thread. Like I said before, we do have the most fantastic range of colours. I think at the end of the show, I might just tip a whole load out of the table and let you look at them for a moment. So I used an autumn colour one, which is one that I designed for Olympus. And I've used that for my maple leaves. I used it singly for the maple leaf, for the little veins inside the leaf. And then I used this wonderful shaded blue for the watery elements in the design. Another one I've done. This is Nandina, which in Japan is a plant that people associate with New Year because it has beautiful berries that you see around New Year time. And you can get them with red berries, you can get them with yellow berries. I've never seen one that actually has both, but I decided to have a bit of artistic license because I thought the shaded thread was so pretty. And with this one, I used a single thread for things like the stems of the little berries, and I used it doubled for almost everything else. It's also used for the little sort of tendrils and the bit that goes, the vein that goes down the middle of the leaf. That's all done singly as well. And this one, I think I showed you this in the packet. This is Sayagata, which is Saya Brocade. And it's a very, very ancient pattern in Japan. Again, it just gives it a new dimension to use a really pretty shaded thread for it. Now I've got a little piece here that I've been doing a bit of stitching on. And this is, it's the Goldfish Design that I've got here. I'll hold it up a little bit. The thing with some of these panels, because they're printed in a grey colour, the contrast isn't as great between the stitch printing and the rest of the panels that I've done. We had mine done in white, so they show up a little bit better. But I've got a thread here. It's on the go at the moment. And this has just been lying around in the back of my work bag for ages. So I actually started with a little knot, and I'm just going to smooth the thread out before I begin again. Because what I want to do now is just do a few stitches. Now, normally I pleat a lot of stitches on the tip of the needle. But because I'm trying to go around the eye of the goldfish, I've only got 3 stitches, and they're on quite a tight curve. So I've got 2 stitches on there, and I can then pull it through, like that. And I can take up the next stitch, and then I've got a slight change of direction there too. I'm going to pleat a few stitches on, so I'm going up to what I think is the nose of the goldfish. Do goldfish have noses? Or his mouth, anyway. So I've got up to there. I've got a few more stitches on there. And I'm just going to turn around, come along here. Because you see, there's a way of stitching Sashko, which again, I've demoed for you quite a few times before, where you basically let the stitching gather up the fabric. This is what helps to stop the 2 stitches, the 2 threads rather, twisting, the double thread, twisting up in the stitches, is you let it gather up, you ease it out like that, and I mean really sort of pull it about. And as you do that, what happens is the 2 threads end up lying parallel in the stitch, and it's fairly obvious with this because I'm using a shaded thread, so you can see there's like a pink bit of the thread and the red bit. Well, that's the two ends of the thread coming together in the stitch, and you can see it quite well there. But by doing that gathering up and easing it out business, that makes those 2 threads lie parallel. If I didn't do that, they would just end up twisting all the time, and the stitches just wouldn't look as nice. And really, that is probably the big secret to stitching your Sashko. It's best to deal with each little area, as you stitch it, because if you try and leave it right to the end of the motif, and you've got lots to try and, ease out, and you've got lots of corners to go around, it can become a bit of a nightmare. And every time you change direction, you want to have a little loop on the back. Not much of one, just a little tiny bit. I'm thinking I can probably show you one on the back of this. If I open it out, you can see the back is covered in little knots on this one, which is okay. There's different ways of starting and finishing Sashko. You can do it with a knot or without a knot. Depends whether you want, whether you're going to cover the back over or not. And on this, let me see, I'm looking for a change of direction. I can't really see one now. There we go. That little bit just there. You can see there's almost a little tiny loosish sort of bit. I'm sort of pushing my thumb under a little bit there. Can you see? Yeah, it's almost like a French knot's worth of thread left on the back. And if you don't leave those little loops, you'll find that your Sashko will really start to pull in, and very quickly the whole piece will shrink. So you mustn't pull those too tight, and you must leave them on the back. This little piece is done, like I said before, starting and finishing off with knots on the back. However, when I do this one, and I'm just wondering if I've got a little piece I did. I don't think I've got a piece that I have done like that with me. You can start and finish just by stitching back on yourself. So this is a piece that I'll get it done for next Christmas. It's not going to be done this year. It's, again, one of these Hannaford King cloths. In the case of this one, I am going to stitch through both layers. I've just tacked the two layers together, and the little detail I've done here, I've folded the corners in. It's what's called a knife edge finish, and if you've ever done traditional British quilting, you might be familiar with that. I'm just trying to angle it a little bit. There you go, you can see it really well there. It's got about 1/2 inch of fabric, or about 1.2 centimetres, tucked in all the way around, and they're just held in place like that. When I finish it, I will slip stitch around the edge, and I'll do all my Sashko going through 2 layers with this one. It's a bit of an experiment. I'll see how it works out, and I'll put some pictures later on my blog so you can see what happened with that one. So I've got a few bits and bobs under here as well. Oh, and I found that piece I was looking for before. This was the piece with the Persimmon flower stitch I was telling you about, where it's stitched first in one direction and then the other direction. And you can see the thicker lines are where I've stitched it, and the thin ones are the ones where I haven't actually stitched it yet. So I've got a little piece there. I thought you might like to revisit something which I had last time on the show, which I finished. And that was the, going back again to the hemp leaf design. It's the hemp leaf pattern on the printed panel, but I've skipped some of the stitches. So when this is actually washed out, all the little white bits will disappear, and it's going to end up looking like, oh, it's up there behind me. It'll end up looking like this one here. Can you see it? Yeah. So it's an Asanoha, but it's got some parts of the pattern missing. So, you can play around with what's on those printed panels. You can do all kinds of different things with them. And I did say I was going to show you a little bit of the Sashko thread as well, didn't I, with different colours. Oh, and I found the piece I was looking for a moment ago. I thought I hadn't brought it in the studio. When I was saying about when you start and finish without a knot, because on this little piece, I've stitched through the 2 layers of the Hannaford King cloth. I need to hem it there. I did this in a slightly different way. I machined it together down this side first, and then I turned it right side out. Then I stitched it, and then what I'm going to be doing next is turning it under here and here, slip stitching the sides. I'm just trying to play around with different ways of finishing them off. And that's what it looks like on the back. So you get like a secondary pattern going on. But there are no knots on this because I literally started and finished by stitching back on myself. So each stitch line was started about 1.5 inches or about 3 centimeters or so away from the end. And then I went back and I stitched through the stitch I'd already done. And I finished each row the same way too. So it gives it a slightly different look, but I thought it was so pretty. That pattern, by the way, is available as one of those Hannaford King cloths, and it's called Competto, which means, believe it or not, confetti, which is a kind of Japanese candy. Rather cute, really. I brought some of the other coloured Sashko threads along today as well. And somewhere under here, I've got a big bag full of them. Oh, there they are. Because I realised, I know everybody thinks Sashko is just blue and white, but there are many, 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 many colours of Sashko thread. In fact, there's all of these. And there's more as well. It's just I grabbed this whole bag out of my workroom today. There's lots and lots of shaded ones and lots of different colours. Nowadays, people are getting very colourful with their Sashko. So I stock all of them. But I do warn people, if you want more than about 5 of one colour, please check I've got them, because obviously with about 30 different colours in stock, it can be tricky to keep them all there. And there's also some wonderful shaded ones as well, like this absolutely lush. This one is shade 172, and it goes through lots and lots of different colours. And they look pretty wild on the skein, but when you stitch with them, they look absolutely stunning. So I'll just clear those, off there, throw them under here for a bit. And I mentioned about fine Sashko thread as well. And there's also thick Sashko thread too. So these two are fine. Maybe I should have should I get a little bit of the ordinary white. Let me see if I got some that's already open. Oh yeah, there you go. I don't even really see much difference between the two. The one I've just put down here, this one is a medium Sashko thread. This one is a fine Sashko, well these two are fine Sashko threads. That's fine Sashko thread as well. And then we also have thick Sashko thread, and that's one that I've actually hand dyed myself. So you can play about with the different thicknesses. As long as it'll go through your fabric, you're going to be okay. So I'll pop those ones down there. So I've said quite a bit about Sashko, and I did say I'm going to try and do a little bit today about Kuggin. I probably ought to mention it now because if I'm not careful, I will run out of time and I won't have shown you anything with it. So the Kuggin is a little different to Sashko. It's the counted version of Sashko, basically. So I've got a few little pieces here. And this was a small bag that I made for the Ultimate Kuggin collection, which is the book that I had that came out back in June 2019. Kuggin, once you started doing the Sashko style they make in User, it's like the next natural addiction. It's the thing you've got to do. And if you've been into things like needlepoint or cross stitch, you'll find it very, very difficult to put down. It's counted. It's only stitched back and forth. You have to have a fabric that you can count. So this one is actually done on 18 count Zweigart fabric, believe it or not, German embroidery fabric, which I'm hoping to have in stock very soon in my shop. I love that because it has a sort of linen-y kind of look to it. And this little blue drawstring purse, I'll just open it out. This one is done on 18 count fabric, which is basically exactly the same as the German stuff, which is the stuff that's sold by Olympus. The only thing that traditionally it's done with white on dark blue. And the only thing about working on dark blue today, I find, is it is a little bit difficult to see. It's like doing cross stitch on dark fabric. You must work with a really, really good light, not just the light above, get a good work light on it too. And also the other trick of putting something white on your knee so you reflect light up at what you're doing, which is a cross stitches trick. That works really, really well. So you can see there's the motif. I'll just try and, Oh, I think I've got some thread or something in here. That's what's rustling. You can see the motif there. And there are hundreds of traditional patterns. So you might think, well, I've done loads of Sashko, I want to do something new. Why not try the Kuggin? Like I said, it is like the logical next step. This is another little bag that I made for the book. This one is it's a slightly different kind of pattern because Kuggin comes from even further north in Japan than the Sashko from Uzumaki does, and that is pretty far north. The Kuggin comes from a place called Hirosaki in Aomori Prefecture. And that is sort of the western half of that area. And in the eastern half, they have a slightly different style of stitching, which is this stuff here, which is called Nambu Hishizashi. Well, the area is called Nanbu. Hishi means diamond and sashi means stitch. So you can see where they get their name from, can't you? And these patterns are stitched over even numbers of threads, whereas the Kuggin patterns that I put them together, you'll see the slight difference. The Kuggin patterns are stitched over uneven numbers of threads. So stitching over even numbers gives it a bit more sort of spread width-wise, really. It makes it more diamond-y shaped. But the two different styles are covered in the same book. And I think we're going to give you some shots of some of the projects that I did for that as well, because we've got those in the studio today. Over there, we've got, oh, there you go, wonderful. That's the cushion that I did for the book. And that really is quite an easy project. You might not think so, because you've got dozens of those little motifs. And they're called cat's paws, neko no ashi. But individually, it is a very, very simple motif to do. I've got a couple here on the table where I've just stitched one little tiny piece. I thought I had some with me that were partly stitched, but I couldn't find them this morning. And just to let you know, not only was I feeling a bit rough when we unpacked, but also it's been chucking it down this morning while we've been recording. So bringing everything in has been quite a job. But it's quite a simple thing to do. We start with the foundation line in the middle. You stitch that, counting very, very carefully. And you don't need to, well, like with Sashko, you don't need to put in a hoop or on a frame. You can stab stitch it if you feel comfortable doing that. Or you can stitch it with like a combination of stab stitching and your normal Sashko stitching where you kind of pleat the stitches onto the tip of the needle. The time you do need to stab stitch, however, is every time you go over a single stitch. Right in the middle of this pattern has got a tiny little stitch in the center. Yeah, and at the top and the bottom. And those are single stitches in a line of other stitches, of course, but they're just over one crossover of the threads. Now, if you do that and you kind of pleat the stitch on the tip of the needle, what will happen? That little crossover bit will kind of sink right down and you really won't see it. If you go back and look at some of my other shows, I think I actually demonstrate that point because, you know, over the past few years, we've done shows where we've done one little aspect of Sashko, one little aspect of Kugin. Today is sort of like, in a way, the mega show where I'm trying to show you lots and lots of different things and give you loads of different ideas. So that's your little bit of Kugin right there. And we've got a few pieces up behind. I don't know if we've shown you them yet. We've got some little pictures up on the wall. They're just, over there to that side. Yeah. And they're just small pieces of Kugin. And like the two little bits that I had there on the table, you know, they're just pieces where I've taken a small piece and I stitched a bit and I framed it. And they're not framed in a very sophisticated way. They're actually just stuck into the frames with bits of double-sided sticky tape. So it's nothing too fancy at all, really. But it makes such a nice, sweet little thing, just a small piece. You can do the same kind of thing with Sashko. Take a tiny little piece, you know, make something really pretty out of it, put it together like that. Of course, you can always go at the opposite end, like the piece that I've got behind me here. It's known as the Denman Canon. I think I mentioned it earlier on. And it's the Buddhist goddess Canon. Oops, I'll move that little trolley out of the way a bit there. So she is actually riding on the back of a giant carp, which I think we could just about see. I'll put my little work bag, oops, I'll put my work bag down. You might be able to see it a little bit better. Yep, the carp's face is maybe slightly out of shot. So I'll hold him up a little bit. There he is. And he was based on a design from, came from Hokusai, with the goddess riding on the giant carp. But I wanted to do something really, really big so that I could try out lots of different styles of Sashko on it. So we've got all kinds of things going on here. We've got some of the larger patterns where I've merged two patterns together and came up with this kind of diamond design here on the fish scales. And then we've got this little bit up here, which is taking some of those designs from User Sashko, the little leafy kind of designs that they do, where they just stitch back and forth, but doing them individually. And at different angles, I've made them look like a spray of willow that the goddess is holding. You know, she's the Buddhist goddess of mercy, so she's got to look really, really nice and kindly. And then when we've done her halo here, I've stitched lots of different designs, again mixing in some of the User Sashko designs around the border here. And then just doing some bigger motifs in the center here. It was based on the Hokusai original, but I did adapt it quite a lot. And there's nothing to stop you doing that. You know, you see a design that you like, you think, well, I can change some elements around and I can really, really make it my piece of Sashko by doing that. So for the border design, I've got lots of those Hitomizashi patterns, the very, very tiny patterns, and they're all stitched going around the border as well. To make a piece like that, it wasn't stitched through wadding. I know that's got wadding in it now, and so is the piece behind me and the piece on the table. But I stitched the Sashko actually as embroidery. I didn't go through all the wadding layers. I stitched it as embroidery, then I put wadding behind it, and then I quilted it by hand in both cases. And if you're going to do that, it's a very, very good idea to get some black wadding, because then you have no chance of it all bearding through. And I think we must almost be at the end of my show. It has been absolutely lovely to come in today. I wish my voice had sounded a bit better for you. So pleased that Sewing Corner invited me to come in. so pleased that you've watched the show. I hope you can watch it again and again. You can follow me, Facebook, on my blog and on my website. And hopefully we will all meet somewhere in future. So it's just been fun. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.